So I am going to dive directly into the annual report. The things that we present and talk about in the annual report is where did we start a year ago? So where did I end this story last year? And how did we do in 2011? Where did our money go? What did we spend our time on? What's this program look like? And what is that setting us up to do in this next year? And where are we going in this next year? You've seen this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but our mission to enhance ecological, economic, and social sustainability in our coastal and ocean communities, and we do that through university-based research, extension, education, and communication. But I think another kind of below that, and what's really important, and sort of the way we operate, the way we try to achieve that, with the size of the program we are, and the breadth of our strategic planning interests, are through a number of things in the plan we call our strategic imperatives, but basically they're the institutional goals and objectives, how we operate. Very focused on partnerships and how you make partnerships work and how do you partner and leverage that capacity of multiple players. How do you focus on activities that are relevant, useful, impactful, that are making a difference for our end user community, getting science into the hands of decision makers. Integration, I've already said that once, and you'll probably get tired of hearing me say that over and over, but it's really important for us. And how, in that context, are we a responsive member of a national and regional network of both Sea Grant programs, but the Mid-Atlantic and the Chesapeake Bay community, and responding and being adaptive to emerging issues. So, what did I say last year? What was my last slide from last year? What are the kinds of things that we said we were going to do? A very important activity that happened at the beginning of last year was the launching of our new website, which is sort of that's the face, but behind it is an electronic called Sea Grant, which is really looking to be a much more comprehensive electronic-based reporting, tracking, monitoring system that helps us understand and keep track of what we're doing and where we're going, and building really a more comprehensive knowledge management system, which I'll talk about in a bit as well. We released 4 RFPs, which is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of our research program as we go forward, but the days where Sea Grants, and not just Virginia Sea Grant, but other Sea Grant programs as well around the country, have had one large science RFP every other year, and those are going away as that portion of our overall budget is staying flat and isn't reflecting, the buying power isn't there as much. And we're becoming much more adaptable, much more going out, finding other resources, leveraging that research dollars, and turning around and making it available in competitive ways, sometimes in pretty targeted areas. So the overall research portfolio is bigger, if anything, but it's got many components to it, and it very much begins to look like a portfolio, your stock portfolio. But we had the 4 that we had out were the science RFP, a coastal community adaptation RFP, the regional science RFP that we've run for a number of years in conjunction with Maryland and Delaware Sea Grant programs, and a Mid-Atlantic sea level rise and inundation RFP that we secured. The other thing that we said we were going to start is focusing on the development of our finalizing our charters and the bylaws and operating principles for our organization, things that, as you probably recognize, that Virginia Sea Grant reorganized pretty considerably in 2007, moved its headquarters to VIMS, and we've been in that process for several years. The strategic plan is a component of it. Building our charter and our operating procedures are a big part of it. And so how do we construct those bylaws to really reflect a Commonwealth-wide network? And we made some great progress on this year, but also had some, another point that I'll come up in a minute about adding new academic partners that make this even a richer conversation. It's pretty exciting. So that's where we said we were going to go, and how did we do? Well, one thing we've seen pretty, it looks pretty good, I think, has been the usefulness of our the website, the face of that Virginia Sea Grant program on the net, internet anyway, is seeing tremendous growth. We're getting a lot of visits and return visits, and people are using that site, and that's good, because the more that happens, the more that infrastructure behind that can function as well. And the other aspect, and I think this event is a good example, that website was a chance for us to identify a brand, identify some imagery that connects the Virginia community with Virginia Sea Grant, and begins to develop a sense of, well, what is Sea Grant relative to all of the big partners that we have. And so you've seen it in the invitations, you've seen it in the publication materials that we have, these watercolors, this font, the color, those are all aspects of our branding. And I think the growth of this event is a good example of where that's becoming, the fruits of that labor are showing themselves. So very exciting. I think we've seen some real great growth in the web and our e-presence, as well as our branding and identity. I mentioned that the Sea Grant system has the capacity to basically run the RFP process all online, where people can submit their proposals online. We conduct our panel reviews online. Progress reports can be reported online. We've been beta testing and using it to varying degrees in each of the RFPs, but it is getting used, and it's going to be, I'm confident, up and running and fully available for our next round of RFPs fully. What it also allows us to do in a much more efficient way is aligning the reporting and performance measures that we have as a program with what the expectations are at the state and federal level through the NOAA reporting, and clustering up into the NOAA strategic planning process and the National Sea Grant Office strategic plan. I think often I find myself in the Sea Grant program finds itself in the role of being a translator. Sometimes that's translating science to someone who's not a scientist, but often it's also translating between what are the terms and used to describe priorities at local and state levels, and what do those same words at the federal level mean, and what are the words that they're using at the federal level to mean the things that we're talking about on the state level. And there's a translation exercise that has to happen there, and that's what often has to happen in our performance reporting. Also, where we're going with this, where I hope this is what we're really trying to push on, is creating a more comprehensive knowledge management system. And advancing in one example of that will be enhancing even the searchability capacity of a website. So not only are you searching the existing information that all the projects that Virginia Sea Grant is funded on oysters or blue crab or whatever you want to pick, and just seeing communication products, extension products, research products from Sea Grant in that world. But how do you then also connect that to all the other funders in the neighborhood that are doing that too? How do you act like Amazon.com and say, hey, you're interested in these 5 books, then maybe you're going to be also interested in these things. So be a little more proactive and push connections and help searchers see opportunities and connections that they may not have seen before. We're at a very busy year on the request for proposal front. I mentioned that we had 4 on the street. The science RFP, which actually was one of those 4. Typical process here, you'll see typical numbers you'll see here too. 36 pre-proposals came in for our science RFP. We encouraged any of those can come forward to full proposals, but we encouraged 9 full proposals. We got 9, and we ended up being able to fund 3 plus some program development projects coming out of that too, going to 4 different institutions and 1 brand new faculty member. That reflects almost $450K of support over 2 years. So the science budget, RFP budget's not real huge. Another element of that was the regional RFP with Maryland and Delaware Sea Grant, where there were 5 pre-proposals, 5 full proposals, and funded 1 project that had 4 institutions involved, and reflects a project that's about a $440K project over 2 years. So our contribution was a typical science RFP project, about 140K or so of that. But because we leveraged it with our neighbors, we were able to produce a overall science project that was much larger. And we also administered a Mid-Atlantic sea level rise and inundation RFP this year. New monies that we secured. Got 15 letters of interest. This was covering the whole Mid-Atlantic region from New York State through to Virginia. 7 full proposals, 1 funded with 4 institutions on board and with a lead from Virginia. So I find, and you'll see this message coming through, Virginia competes really well if we have our chance to compete, and we competed extremely well in that Mid-Atlantic regional RFP and secured those fundings. And the project's taking place between Virginia and Maryland. And we also had a Coastal Community Adaptation Fund this year where we had 1 proposal and that successfully went through the peer review process and was funded. What I think that the take-home message, there are a couple take-home messages. One is that reflects Sea Grant passing through over $1 million of competitive monies in this last year. That's much bigger than our small single science RFP. But it also reflects how we've operated. So here's a chance where we leveraged our monies with 2 partners. Here's an example of the Mid-Atlantic sea level rise inundation where there was an RFP on the street out of NOAA that was internally competed, and we successfully secured those monies to turn them around and make them competitively available to our PIs. This was a block grant coming down from National Sea Grant Office focusing on community adaptation issues. And in addition, this year, the National Office, in trying to advance some social science projects, were able to provide some matching funds. So for the social science work that was funded in our RFP, and there's 1 project in there like that, we were able to get some additional dollars from the National Office. So it becomes a really dynamic portfolio design to how you manage our research program. Another area where you see, I think, some tremendous competitive advantages from Sea Grant, and something we're really proud of, is last year I reported that in our Canals Marine Policy Fellowship Program, we were tied nationally with California with 5 fellows, the most that you can get from a state. Well, you could advance 6 applications, but rarely. I don't know if I've ever seen any state get 6, but 5 is the most I've seen. We got that last year. We got it again this year. Our students compete really, really well. We tied with Texas for the most in 11. It reflects 12% of all the fellows in the program up in D.C. and 20% of the very competitive slots on the Hill, which and these are our rock stars. These folks go on to amazing places, and they're really critical parts of the Virginia Sea Grant family and network down the road. Stacy Beharry from ODU has got an appointment in the National Science Foundation's Division of Ocean Sciences. Lindsay Kratz from VIMS is going to be on the Hill in Mike Thompson's office. Chris Brosser from VIMS is going to be at EPA in the Ecological and Health Protection Branch. Emily, you've met. She's from Virginia Tech, and she's going to be in the National Sea Grant Office. And Charlotte Weaver, also from Virginia Tech, is going to be in the U.S. House Committee on Natural Resources. I think increasingly I'm seeing this pool of students that we interact with as one of the huge competitive advantages Virginia has. Across all our academic institutions, the power of our academic institutions, we produce some really high-quality students, and they compete very, very well at the national level. We're also seeing a lot of attention to those. Certainly in the Canals program, we've seen huge increases. We have 12 applicants last year. We can only move forward 6. So we have to make a 50% cut at that level. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we're on track for hitting that. The deadline's not here yet, but we're going to probably hit that this year too. Coastal management fellows that place fellows in the coastal zone management programs around the country. We weren't seeing much action on this at all in the past, but we've started to see applicants coming in. We have it was 8 applicants this year, but a couple have looked to be incomplete, so I think we had about 6 there total. We had 1 backup finalist in 2011. The NIMS Sea Grant Pop Die Fellowships, that's 3 years of support. We had one in 11. We got one applicant going in 12. The jointly funded Virginia Sea Grant Southeast Fisheries Science Center Collaborative Fisheries Research Fellow. We have one now. Those monies and are available for another one. And we have a portion of our research pot that was dedicated to graduate research fellows, and we'll probably be funding about 4 of those, I hope. And we have 17 applicants for that as well. Plus, you're seeing an increase in internships, increase of students coming to our program to be photography interns, to focus, our science communication internship in the summer in our communication center, and a lot of law and policy fellows as well from law schools and the like. So a very competitive group of people, and become, again, some of the rock stars of our program. Now, we're kind of where our ground game is. If I talk about Super Bowl and kind of the ground game, where we produce a lot of our impacts and thank you, is through our outreach and extension program, where these are some of the performance measures that were kind of the outputs that were reported to our national office this last year. Some of the impacts, the outcomes from the work that we do. I'm not going to go through each one of those, but you'll see the flavor with a lot of work with the culinary institutes, the marina programs, the seafood safety programs, undergraduate support, student support, getting communities to utilize the science that we bring to the table, and job creation and economic benefits come directly from our program. Last year in this presentation, we had, I think, 3 or 4 retirements in our program and added a couple staff, and I mentioned that. This year, we didn't have any retirements and we didn't add any staff, but we did have one staff member, Chris Petrone, leave Virginia Sea Grant for a job with Delaware Sea Grant. So I give Delaware a lot of grief. But our productivity has been growing and staying high, so we're getting a lot of from the staff that we have. Big event for us this last year too was the Matthias Medal, which is a partnership which is given to it's a Lifetime Achievement Award for scientists in the Chesapeake Bay, provided by Virginia, Maryland Sea Grants in conjunction with the Chesapeake Research Consortium. And Kevin, I saw Kevin here, and Gene Burson was awarded that this year. And you see the prestigious group of folks that have gotten this, and there aren't many. So, and I also wanted to note quickly that. If you go to our Marine Resource Bulletin, you use your cell phone and your iPhone, and you zap the little bar, you can hear the audio testimony that folks gave for Gene at that event, which was very, very nice. There's some great. Are the kids on there? The grandkids? They didn't make it. They didn't. But I think that one of the biggest things that happened to us this last year is we're 50% bigger now. 2 academic institutions, dues-paying institutions, joined Virginia Sea Grant. Virginia Commonwealth University and George Mason University. The universities and colleges are cautious. They move slowly. They don't change fast. But in about 4 to 6 months, we started the conversations and concluded the conversations with dues and representatives from each of these 2 new institutions. That I think is an exciting statement about where Virginia Sea Grants come, where people want to be part of us. These organizations want to be part of us, and I think this opens up all kinds of new opportunities. A couple quick slides on funding, where we spend our time and our money. I think this also reflects the nature of the portfolio approach to thinking about a Sea Grant program and our program. The blue bars on the bottom reflect where the federal monies are spent. The kind of reddish bars reflect the match dollars that come from states, and then the greenish bars reflect the leveraged funds that we go out and we secure from other sources and are able to do because we have that base support in the Sea Grant funding. And I think what the take-home message here is that Over $2 million of competitive monies are on the street. Nearly $2 million worth of outreach activities are underway in our program. We take about a $2.2 million base program, and we're about a $4.6 million a year program because of that leverage capacity. Dynamic, a lot of work to get those that other money. Is not always sure where they're going to come from, but this has been our trajectory. So where are we going? What's in the last couple slides on what does 12 hold for us? One thing you're seeing is this mid-course check-in on the strategic plan. There will be RFPs out sort of late in the year, early next year for the next round. We are seeing some competitive dollars available coming out of the National Sea Grant Office, and particularly in the area of the Coastal Community Adaptation Funding area, and the aquaculture research and the NSIs, National Strategic Initiatives. The FY12 budget looked remarkably good for all of the talk that was going on last year, but 13 is a different story. In the fall, we have a really critical step in the national review process for Sea Grant that will set our merit rating. That's a PRP panel. The panel, I don't even remember what it's called. The peer review panel, I think, that will be cumulatively looking at our performance over the last 4 years. The other thing, is picking up again where some of the charter bylaw operating procedure discussion was put temporarily on hold while we were negotiating with the two new partner institutions to bring them on board and getting them engaged in that discussion. We are continuing that, making progress on that, and I think you're seeing we're trying to look at building that operating procedures, as bylaws, as that charter, in a way that really helps us be that knowledge management organization, serving that facilitative function. And not something that really will make you may notice, but embedded in all this will be a college, a National Sea Grant Office accreditation level that we're going to be seeking, the highest ranking in the Sea Grant program as a college status program. And I don't want you to necessarily look at the details of this because you can't read them, but this reflects kind of where we're going in our operating procedures and our charter, looking through and looking at how our partners, what's the partnership principles look like, who are the different partners, and thinking about what are they doing, what are the communities of practice in there, the communities of interest, who's all doing the same kind of topical work, but either as extension activities or research activities or communication activities, and how do we as an organization try to advance the connection between those, particularly if they are crossing functional areas or crossing institutional areas. And when an emerging issue arises that has components of both or maybe not, how do we make those connections happen? That's what our organizational charter has to do. That's what our organization has to be able to accomplish. And hopefully next year when I'm doing this again, I'll have some examples. So almost final slide. Thank you after this. All those themes you've heard me repeat: reflective, strategic, adaptive organization, Commonwealth-wide networked organization that focuses on partnerships and integration. That's what this event is helping us do. College status accreditation to reflect that. So that is the, thank you, that is the annual report from Virginia Sea Grant.